Hola, ¿qué tal? Aquí Julio Monroy desde Delta Records. Hoy estamos muy contentos porque tenemos un gran invitado. Este live va a ser totalmente en inglés, entonces, pues aquí nos vamos. Hi, how are you? Gary, how are you, my friend?
I am well, thank you. How are you, Julio?
Fine, thank you. And we are with David Sicar. Hi, Sik, how are you?
Hello everyone, how have you been? Welcome to this new episode of Produciendo con Julio Monroy, producing with Julio Monroy in English. This episode is going to be only in English. Remember that if you've got any questions, you can actually write them on the comment section of the platform on which you're watching this, and I will communicate the questions to both Julio and Gary. So, thanks a lot for being here. It's a huge honor to have you here.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you, Gary, for accepting this invitation with us. It's
It's
an
my
honor.
pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Where are you now?
I am at home in California, in Northern
California.
California. Yeah.
Okay. What time is it there?
It is 4 p.m. here in California.
Okay, great. You have sun right now. Here is 6 p.m. My friend
Yes.
Gary, um, well, we are here with you because John Crivet introduced us. Um, okay, John is today is John's birthday.
Mhm.
So we would like to know, and we have a first question, and it is, how did you begin with the music and audio?
Well, it goes back quite a while. When I was a teenager, I was a musician. I played in a few bands and nothing really great. To be honest, I was not a great musician, but I played well enough for junior high school dances and things like that. And I had a cousin who was a studio drummer, so I would sometimes go with him to the studio, and I found a real strong connection to everything that was going on in the studio. I felt like everyone else in the room was staring at the engineer, going, "What is he doing?" And I'm standing there saying, "I know exactly what he. Oh, I saw it. He just added a little high end to something, or he just added a little reverb to something." Even as little as I knew about audio at that time, I was able to sort of understand what he was doing. So a few years later, I decided to go knock on a lot of doors in New York. This was in 1983. I knocked on the doors of about 50 studios with something that looked kind of like a resume, and got my first job making coffee and taking out the garbage in Counterpoint Recording in New York. And after that, I just moved up through the chain for assistant engineer, staff engineer, and eventually freelance in New York. And I worked there throughout the 80s.
Oh, that's amazing. 1983, right?
Yes. And
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
also the year of my first AES convention. A
Really?
bunch of the people from the studio were going, and they said, "Come with us. This thing is great. You'll love this." And I said, "Okay." I had no idea, and I went there, and up until that point, I was still the guy making the coffee and taking out the garbage. So I was told, "Don't touch anything." And then all of a sudden, I'm in this place on this floor with this amazing equipment all around me, and everybody's saying, "No, no, put your hands on it, see what it does, touch it." I said, "Really? I can touch?" And so I had so much fun. And I was sold after that. And I know that was a long time ago, but I've been a fairly regular attendee at AES conventions over the past 41 years as a result of that.
Well, that's great. And I don't know, but I guess in that AES, MIDI was released, right?
Excuse me?
The MIDI was released in 1988 in
Um,
that convention, right?
I'm not sure exactly what year it was. You've done your research probably and would know better than me.
Yeah. Do,
But
do you know why? Because I with my students I teach MIDI, and
ah,
we have a like a AES document
right.
where Craig Anderton says that it was released, I guess, in that year, 1988.
I
Uh,
thought it was a little earlier, but I think it's entirely possible that, or it might have been the more the upgraded version of MIDI that came
yeah,
out that year.
because
Because
the
I
first
think there was
version
an
was,
earlier version that some synth players I knew were using, but it was very limited in what it could do. The really full blown one with all that extra information that came later, so that would be about right.
okay. Yeah, 1981, I guess, and then at the NAM,
Mhm.
it was released
Yes,
in 1988 and 1993. Yeah, yeah,
yes, that makes sense.
that's
'Cause when I
wow,
started, it was already there, but it was very limited in its usage. But
wow,
you're right. By about '88, it became much stronger, much more robust. You could do a lot more with it.
wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Gary, I saw that you wrote a few books about audio. Can you
Yes,
tell us more about that books, please?
sure. My first book called "Shaping Sound in the Studio and Beyond." That one, I originally wrote that because I had started teaching as an adjunct in a few different colleges, and I just didn't really feel like there was any one text out there that was doing what I wanted it to do, to really explain things in beginner's terms with an idea towards taking somebody to the next level of helping them to become an engineer and to be, critical listening and really assessing the equipment around them. So I wrote it. My first version of it, I was self-publishing. I was just printing it out and xeroxing it and sticking it in binders and giving it to my students. And then I met a publisher who was interested. So in I believe it was 2003 that book came out. It might have been 2004. And then I am actually currently working on a second edition, in fact. So, along with a former student of mine, Mike Testa, who is also a very talented engineer and an educator, we're working on a second edition of that, which should be out hopefully by the end of this year or early next year at the latest. So, that was my first book. Uh, Based on how much they liked the first book, the publisher asked me to write another book, this one about location recording, which I co-authored with a good friend and a fellow engineer, Paul Henrik, in St. Louis. That was when I was teaching at Webster University in St. Louis. And then I decided I wanted to write the book that I really always wanted to write, which was a tribute to my mentors. So I went around the country and interviewed about 30 engineers who had worked through the transition from analog to digital, and really some of them as far back as wire recording, even the early days of tape, and even some of them had worked on wire, and then up to digital and beyond. So now, so I love that book. That one is my favorite because that was my kind of my pet project, and it was also a tribute to my mentors. We all learn from different people in this business, and they learn from their mentors, and they learn from their mentors, and on back. So when I see something about Tom Dowd, I say, oh, Tom Dowd. Well, I know he was a big influence on people like Phil Ramone and Al Schmidt, and these people were a big influence on the people who I learned from. So, there's a really direct line to our mentors in this business.
Well,
And
that's amazing.
I'm doing a reworking of that book also, although the interviews obviously stay the same.
Like us, we are making interviews with important people involved in audio and music.
Right,
Yeah,
important
and
people plus me too.
oh, you are very important. And
Thank you.
who are your mentors?
Well, when I came up in New York in the business, my immediate mentors were people like Gary Chester and Ben Wish, Leslie Mona Matheson. There were quite a few of them, really. I assisted Jim McCurdy. I assisted a lot of really great engineers, and every one of them had their unique way of doing things. So I paid attention. I did what assistant engineers are supposed to do, which is write down my questions and ask later. and say, well, I saw you did this, and I understand what the change was, but was there a specific reason for that? Why did you do that? And once I was able to understand what they were thinking and why they were making certain changes, it made a lot more sense to me. And that just improved me as an engineer. And what I learned later from teaching is that explaining these things to other people also made me a better engineer, because when I have to explain my process to someone else, I I get a better understanding of it myself. So I'm really grateful for my teaching experience, because I learned so much more from teaching, not to mention from my students as well, because they would bring in unique techniques. And one of the things I always loved doing in class is we would start class by saying, bring me in something that you like. I want to hear what you're listening to. And then I would say, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And we would take these things apart together. And it was really a great experience for all of us.
Great, great, Gary. And I was talking with John Cribbit, and he said, "Hey, Julio, you should ask Gary about the educator event that he created many years ago in St. Louis. Can
Yes,
you tell us more about it?"
the Central Region Audio Student Summit, which is still going on to this day. I've lost track. I think they're up to the 16th or 17th annual one now. It was actually, it was really more of a student initiative. I mean, I helped the students, but we came back from a convention in New York, an AES convention in New York, and the students were just amazed at how great it was. This is such an incredible experience. The people they met, the equipment they saw, the papers they saw presented, everything was amazing to them. And they said, "Why? I wish we could do something like this here." And I said, "Well, why not? We can do something like this here." So we pulled it together, and we called a lot of people in the industry. We called other colleges. We said, let's get a bunch of students together and just have something that looks like the convention in New York. We won't do a big show floor, obviously, the way there is in New York, and we won't have really peer-reviewed papers or any of the other stuff that goes on in New York. That's a significant part of the New York event. But what we did do is we got together about 500 students and teachers and audio professionals all together on the campus of Webster University, where we were able to just have a great 3 days together, immersed in audio. It was a great experience for all of us. And in fact, John Cribbit may have mentioned to you that he also had a similar event in Boston, the Boston Area Definitive Audio Student Summit. The acronym is BADASS for that, and that event truly was badass. He put together a great event, and it was a similar concept. The papers weren't peer reviewed, but there was plenty of education going on. There were sponsors who wanted to exhibit their wares, and most importantly, there was that camaraderie that you get at an AES convention, which really is the thing, when I think about it, that most impressed me right from the start, right on through over all the years that I went. And it's still the reason that I go. I go to a convention, whether it's in New York or in Europe or in California. I go to an AES convention, and it just fills my soul. It just makes me feel so great to be among all these other great audio professionals and people who understand the language, because we have our own language that we can't speak to our friends or our girlfriends, wives, husbands, whoever, because they just don't understand this, and they get bored so easily when we start talking about audio. And so it's such a pleasure to be in a large venue full of people who all speak the same language.
Yeah, but sometimes we are alone in the studio working, and going to these events are it's great, no? Because you meet some people, people like you, with similar interests and
Mhm.
everything, everything. Yeah. Gary, can you tell me, talking about the St. Louis event, in what year was that event?
Oh, I don't remember the exact year. I want to say it was probably 2005 or 2006, that first one. Let me
Okay.
think. Yeah, it would be about 2000, yeah, 5 or 2006. I would
Okay.
have to
Okay.
look it up to be sure.
Okay.
um, yeah, that was the year of the first one, and they've kept it up every year since. I was still there for another 7 or 8 years after that, and then after I left, they kept it going. Webster was really known for that event. So everyone through the central region of the U.S. knew about the event, and they all planned on going. And what I love to see is that when I go to the AES conventions now in New York, I see students from Webster who are walking around and trying to find people to invite them out to come out to their summit the next spring. They do always do it in the spring, and I love seeing that. I love seeing it just keep going like that.
That's great. I love the conventions in New York and in Colombia. We had
Yes.
a conference 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and now there's a convention in La Paz in 1.5 week.
Yeah, September 10th through 12th, I will be there for that too. Really looking forward to that one. And you know what I should note about this also is that the first Latin American conference took place 16 years ago, and after 15 great conferences this year, it is now the Latin American Convention instead of the conference. Basically, it's been so successful, we had to raise it up and give it convention status. And I'm so happy about that. And I'm so looking forward to going.
Yeah, I'm very excited too. I'm very excited too. I have never been in Bolivia, so
Well,
it's
that
going to
makes
be
two of
amazing.
us.
Yeah.
I have been in Colombia. I have not never been in Bolivia though.
Have you been
So
in
I'm looking.
Colombia?
Yes, many years ago, I just took a vacation. Just probably about 3 weeks. Went to Bogota and then to Cartagena. Just very touristy. You know, no business
Oh,
involved at all.
well, that's great. That's great. And Gary, well, we are here because we want to talk about AES. You are
Hmm.
now the president-elect by the AES, and I want to ask you something. In your words, what is AES? What is for you AES?
So AES, I mean, I could give you the official definition that it's a professional member organization, volunteer driven. What it is to me is it's camaraderie. Like I said before, it's an opportunity to network. And when I say networking, I don't mean just for business purposes. I mean for personal purposes as well. I make friends every year when I go to the AES convention. I make friends at AES. And I love making new audio friends, new friends in the business. I love having people come up to me and say something like, I was at a panel that you moderated 15 years ago here in New York, and it was great. It changed my whole view of the business. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have that kind of camaraderie, that kind of networking opportunity. But what I really need to say about AES, I keep talking about New York, and it's not just New York. It's really a local organization. It's a lot of local organizations. And this is very important. Wherever you are in the world, there are other audio professionals, and you may know them and you may not know them. There may be an AES section near you. If you want to find out, you can send an email to, I think it's membership@aes.org. And if you send that email, and just say, I live in Wichita, Kansas, or, I live in La Paz or wherever, and say, where's the closest section to me? You'll be able to get that information. And you can sit with a bunch of like-minded people. It doesn't have to be just at the big international conventions. It can be the local level events. And some of our sections put on truly amazing events. There's going to be one here in San Francisco next month that they do every year. The AES San Francisco section studio crawl. It's one of my favorite events. It's about 8 or 10 hours long, and the first half of the day, there's about a dozen studios that open their doors, so you get to go and tour different studios and talk to the owners and just see everything that's going on. And then the last half of the event is basically a big party. We raffle off things, we eat, we talk, we network. It's just such a great event. So I really I need to impress this on people, and I have this conversation a lot that AES is not just a big international organization, which it is. It's also a great local organization. So, wherever you are, there are other audio professionals. If there isn't an audio engineering society section somewhere near where you live, but 15 or 20 other audio people in your city, then get together and start a section. I've started sections. I've helped revitalize sections that had, where the leadership sort of, wasn't really active anymore. So things weren't happening. They weren't holding events. And I moved to the town and I said, well, we should just do stuff. We should start things up again. And there were always interested audio professionals who jumped up and said, oh, that'd be great. Yeah, let's do that. So we all got together and we revitalized a section that had gone dormant. I've done that in two different cities now. Plus, I've started one student section, the one at Webster University, but I've also, when I was a vice president, helped quite a few others get started. I'm a big fan of this very local level version of it. Now, having said that, I should mention that we always welcome help on the end of all the committees that we do for everything, committees for membership, for education. I was very big in the historical committee for many years. I'm right now part of the events coordination committee, so we oversee the conferences and the conventions and things like that. We're always looking for people to help out. So if you want to have a very strong local section, but also do some things with the larger international organization, we welcome your help.
Well, that's great, Gary. Yeah, I love AES. In fact, I have my cap. I bought this in New York.
Very nice.
This is very important for me. Very, very important. So
I would put mine on, but it's in the car.
we can wait you. No.
That's okay. I'll bring it with me to La Paz.
Yeah. We're going to take a picture with our caps.
Okay, sounds good.
And Gary, I was wondering what you commonly find at any AES convention. You can find people who are involved in education, some brands. Can you tell us more about it?
Really, it's such a big tent. It's everyone in every end of the audio business. If it's audio, then there is some presence at AES. Excuse me, whether it's broadcast and streaming or recording and production, any of the things I've mentioned already, like historical, all of these things. And of course, we are a standards organization. So you had mentioned AES very early, the MIDI convention very early in the call. All of those MIDI conventions came, as you know, from AES papers and AES standards. So AES is setting standards for audio for all over the world. And, I mean, that's a huge part of what we do. We were started by scientists and broadcasters and such. And over the years, it expanded. When I started going in the 80s, we had already sort of leaned over towards recording and production a little bit more, but the scientific basis was always there. The historical committee was always there. There were always things going on looking to the future of audio, which is part of the education committee, of course, is our future, as well as all the scientific research that's going on and the standards that are being established. Along with that, we are looking at our past through the historical committee. Where have we come from and where are we going? And that's a big thing to me, is tying all that together. So you might go to an AES convention, or even an AES section meeting, and it might be about AI and machine learning. Artificial intelligence is so huge now. It's such a great topic. Immersive audio is a big topic, but we're still talking about all the basics as well. We're still talking about how do we have the best quality signal in any given situation. So there are so many different facets to it. In fact, if you ever want to do something just for fun, look through the list of all the sessions that are going to be at either the convention in La Paz or the convention in New York. And what you're going to see is so much variance, going from recording and production to audio for visual media, for movies and for streaming and for the web, everything. The audio that we're listening to right now has an AES standard set for it, and this is one of the things that we're very focused on.
I was thinking about the document that I told you about, the beginning of MIDI,
Yep.
and I found that document in the AES e-library.
Yes.
And can you tell us more about that library that the people can check?
Yeah, there's just a ton of information in there. There are so many great things on the website. We, in fact, are just in the process of updating the website, so it's going to be so much easier to access a lot of this information once it's all done. The e-library is great. We have recordings of, well, we have a lot of different things. We have a lot of papers, like all the different standards papers that we've been talking about. The MIDI paper that you talked about. George Massenberg's first paper outlining what parametric equalization is, when none of us ever knew that existed before, because it didn't until he wrote a paper about it. So you can find papers going back throughout the history of AES, done by just brilliant people, really people who are just our smartest people in our audio community, who write these papers. Along with that, on the AES website, there's AES Live, and that is being updated also as we speak. And that has interviews with lots of old school engineers and inventors, and some really in-depth interviews with them. Some of these interviews are an hour or so long because they're just so in-depth. There is such a wealth of information for anyone interested in audio on the AES website. And I should mention that really one has to be a member in order to get into AES, into the e-library. That is a benefit of membership. And I think it's a great benefit. People are always asking me, well, why should I join? And one of the things is, well, if you ever need audio information, you can go to the website and you can go to the e-library, you can go to AES Live, you can get information about audio. You can find out what the standards are, and you can read everything right on the spot there.
Yeah, okay, understood. It's AES e-library. It's amazing. And why is that helpful for to the student to have access to that AES e-library? What do you think for a student? Because for
Well,
me as a professional, it's amazing, but sometimes I don't know, papers could be a little complicated. Or what do you
they
think?
can be. Some of them more so than others. Really, it just depends. There are some that I need to take my time reading, even though
Yeah.
I'm supposedly, pretty knowledgeable about all this. I have to really take my time reading some of these things. Some of them are more simple, or more simply laid out. I think for a student, it's a great introduction to a lot of different things. So, I was talking earlier about the first book that I wrote and how I wanted to make it simple enough for a beginner to understand, but enough to take them towards that next level. To me, this is part of the same process of just getting somebody to that next level where they start thinking the way an audio professional does. I'm reluctant to use the word thinking like an engineer, because it's more than just engineers. It's really anyone involved in audio. And
Yeah.
I like to give my students, tell them, go to the e-library, pick a paper, and then write me a few paragraphs about it. Tell me what you learned from it. And they're always amazed because they go and they say, well, I couldn't make head or tail of this thing at first, but then I read it 3 times and now it makes sense to me. And I understand, I understand this thing about room reflections that I just never really thought of before. So I think it gets people thinking, and I think it gets students thinking in directions that they might not otherwise think about.
Great. Yeah, I
That's great.
remember that document about the meeting, and it's wrote in typewriter. It's
Yes.
very old. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
old, but it's amazing. It shows, and you can learn about how the MIDI message are created. So I
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
David, do we have questions?
I do have a personal question. First of all, well, it's amazing what AES has achieved and done through all these years, and the fact that it's still going strong now. I think it's fantastic. But I do have a question. I know that you actually have a pretty established structure inside AES.
Mhm.
How do you, for example, from the beginning, how do you become an AES member, and how, for example, the vice president role works, how the governor role works, and which are the differences between these roles?
That's a great question, David. So, starting from the beginning, if you want to become a member of AES, you go to aes.org and you click the button that says join. It's really that simple. And then, you put in your information and you pay and you're a member. So, that part of it is very simple. And we welcome any audio professional to join, become a member. As far as the governance, David, there's really a few different ways to look at it. I'll start with the committees. I mentioned before there are committees. I forget how many. I think there are about 11 or 12 different committees, and they can be anything from committees about our publications to committees about education, working with students, to committees about membership, looking how we can best serve our members. Committees historical, I mentioned, which keeps records and looks over the history of our organization. What if you want to get involved with any of those committees? Once you join, you can request to join any committee you like. It used to be a little bit easier because in the days before the internet, when I started going, I would go to a convention and the meetings were going on. And so if I said, oh, look, there's a historical committee meeting, I wonder what they talk about, I would go to the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, the person who ran that committee would say, so you're new here. Do you want to join the committee? And I say, sure, sounds good. It was much more casual. Now, still with the internet, it's still fairly easy. You just request to join any committee you want. So there are committees that focus on, we have different kinds of committees, I should say, because that's one type of committee. We also have technical committees. So if you're particularly interested in something like audio for games, you can request to join the audio for games technical committee. And if you want to move into leadership in one of these committees, if you're active in the committee and you express an interest, then the people who are the current leaders are always looking for help. So you can always move up within that committee. So that's the committee level of what we do. And that's incredibly important because that really is something that touches all our members in a very positive way. Beyond that, if somebody wants to run for Board of Governors, now our vice presidents are all members of the Board of Governors. And the Board of Governors basically oversees a lot of the committee work. They oversee a lot of what's going on, and they work together with the Board of Directors to make the decisions about the future of AES, about where our conventions and conferences are going to be, and about where, really the general direction. If there are big questions that need to be asked, those are the places where those questions get answered. So I would encourage anybody who's interested to run for Board of Governors, run for regional vice president. The duties are a little different. The Board of Governors, even though they're all members of the Board of Governors specifically are more focused on committee work and all that, whereas the vice presidents are more focused on their region. much in the way that Jorge is your regional vice president. He's doing an amazing job. So he helps out with the regional convention in La Paz, but also he helps every section in his region. So, excuse me, if a section needs a little bit of help with something, or they're looking for a particular type of speaker, or if they are, if a bunch of people come together and they want to start a section, then the way for them to start that section is to speak to their regional vice president. And that person will have all the paperwork available, all the instructions, they'll walk them through the process. So the regional vice president is much more in touch with all the sections in their region. And then they report to the regions and sections committee, which oversees all the different regions. And then beyond that, if somebody gets to that point where they're on the board of governors and they love what's going on with the governance and they think they can do a great job, then they can do what I did, which is run for president. And I ran for president. I ran 2 years ago, and I ran again last year, and I won last year. So I am the president-elect. So next year will be my presidential year. Although I should warn people that being a president is a 5-year commitment, because year number 1, president-elect, that's this year. Next year I'll be the president. And then after that, I will be the immediate past president. And then I have to serve 2 more years. I shouldn't say I have to. And then after that, I serve 2 more years on the board of governors. And along with that, there are certain specific committees that I have to be on through the process. So it is a big commitment if one wants to be the president.
A lot of work. A lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but I love AES. In case you can't tell by how I talk about it, I love AES. So I'm happy to do that work. And I feel like I've already done a lot of work with the AES and for the AES. One of the committees that I co-chair, that I have co-chaired, that I'll step down from next year when I become president, is the Events Coordination Committee. And that's one of those committees that people don't know about, they don't hear about, but we oversee conventions, conferences, training and development events. We do a lot of work behind the scenes. And I love doing that.
Yeah, the first time that I went to the AES convention was in 2018. Yeah, like 6 years ago, and it was amazing. I love it. But going from Bogota to New York will cost a lot of money.
Yes, it does.
And last year I went again only to the commercial area, and I've made a video about the commercial area. I don't know, Sik, if you have it here, but I made a video and it was amazing. I felt like a child in Disney World.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the video. So I went to New York and I took a lot of videos, and then there were 3 days. That's the Javits Center.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love it. I hope to be there in 2 months because it's really amazing. No, I love it. I don't have words. I don't have words.
Oh, no, it's always a great experience, and it is overwhelming. The first time you go, it can be really overwhelming because there's just so much going on, so many people, so much equipment. So it's the beginning of October 8th through 10th this year. And obviously, I will definitely be there, and look forward to seeing you there, Julio. And I really would love to see anyone who's interested in coming. If you see me walking around, please walk up to me and introduce yourself. Say hi. Say, I think I saw you on some podcast. I love
in a live, in a live with Julio Monroy.
Indeed. So this to me is the biggest thing about it. And I would tell my students this. I would bring students there for their first AES convention, and I'd walk around with them, and we'd see somebody, walk around. We'd see Chuck Ainley or Frank Filippetti, one of these amazing, great, big engineers, walking around, and I'd say, "Oh, go say hi. Go introduce yourself." He loves talking to people. Go say hi. Oh, look, there's George Massenburg. Go say hi.
Yeah,
So, wait, George Massenburg? I said, yeah. So come on, I'll introduce you. You know,
yeah,
and it's
that's amazing.
it's true. It's just you just don't have that anywhere else except for an AES convention. And I should say it doesn't matter whether it's an AES convention in New York or an AES convention in California, or for that matter, I'm looking forward to the one in La Paz because I think that's going to be a great convention too, and I look forward to the people I'm going to meet there. And you know, you're going to go, you're going to meet people who are just at the top of our industry, and whatever your interest is, the people there'll be people there. I have students who come to me and say, I just met the guy who engineered my favorite album ever. And it's like, great. So, did you get his number? You know, you can go visit his studio. Go visit his studio. This is a great time to. This is what it's about. It's networking. It's that this is where we're building those relationships.
Yeah, yeah. Like I met John Cribbit at AES last year, and now we're here talking with you. That's amazing because it opens a lot of paths to communicate with people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and John is great. John knows everyone. I call him the mayor of AES because he's like, how there's a mayor in town and they just seem to know everyone. I feel like John is the mayor of AES. He just knows everyone. and
Yeah,
he makes connections like no one I've ever seen. And I'm pretty good at the networking thing, but yeah, he's much better at it than I am.
yeah. And with his community, Hey Audio Student, it's amazing. It's
It
amazing. A
is.
lot of people involved.
Oh, so many people on that site. I go there almost every day just to see what's going on and see who's checking in, who's posting what. There's always interesting things there.
Thank you, Gary. We have a question, Sig.
We do have a question. Is from Ian Booth. My local AES chapter hasn't been active for a couple of years. They say they're going through post pandemic. I've inquired and offered my services to help out, but was told that they are still organizing. Do I have any options?
Wait, did they say what city or what town they're in or where they're
They
located?
they did not say where they are located.
If they,
Ian, could
if
you
they,
please
yeah, go ahead.
Ian, could you please send us your location so we can figure this out for you? Thank you,
Yeah,
Ian.
because I'd love to help. Really, the thing to do is to go is to start with your regional vice president. You can go to aes.org and look under, I believe it's under community. I actually have it on my other screen here so I can cheat. If you go if you go to community, there's a thing about sections, and when you go to sections, you can find who your vice president is in that section, and you shoot them an email, and they should be able to help you with it.
He is
Uh,
from Montreal.
um, oh, Montreal, yeah. So we do have a section in Montreal, but his regional vice president is Angela Paiva, and if he
Ah,
reaches
yeah.
out to her directly, she's great. I was vice president of the eastern region of that region for a little while, and Angela does a great job. If he was to reach out to her, she would be able to at least put him in touch with other people who are also interested in revitalizing the section. And then there's a lot of things that a regional vice president can do to help that along. If they need to, set up just a get together one night, they can help out a little bit in finding the location and covering some of the expense. And, just to get everybody in a room together to talk about it, figure out who wants to be in leadership, like this person who asked the question. Um, and I'll tell the person who asked the question also, if they are in New York, October 8th through 10th for the convention, find me. We'll find Angela together. I'll introduce you. Although you don't have
Fantastic.
to wait. You can shoot an email out. You don't have to wait for that.
Fantastic. I actually would also like if you can maybe talk a little bit to all the students that are watching us right now. What advice would you give to them, and why is it important for an audio engineer to get in touch with AES and at an early stage, because it's an amazing community. They have a lot of events. So what can you tell to all the students watching us?
Well, what I can tell you a couple of things. I can tell you first off, a lot of my former students work where they do now because of going to AES conventions, meeting people, having a good relationship with somebody who had a studio, and they end up working for that person. So a lot of people got their first studio job from an AES convention. This is not an unusual thing to happen. It's pretty common. Um, for as far as students, what you have to think about, you know, the business is a lot different now than it was when I started. When I started, I described how I started. I knocked on a lot of studio doors until somebody gave me a job as a gopher, and I worked my way up from there. And that worked well in the 80s. Here in this year, not so much, because there aren't that many major studios anymore. So that is still a possible path, but it's much more difficult. The chances are you're going to grow into your business, into your as an audio professional. You're going to need peers. You're going to need other audio professionals that you know that can help you with your business and that you can help with their business. We all help each other. And this is a big part of working in audio. The ones who work alone in their studios, never see another audio professional, live in a very small world. If you want to live in a bigger world with a lot more going on and a lot more opportunity, then you really need to network with other students. The people who are your students with now will be your peers on down the line. Now, where AES comes in with that is not just going to conventions and getting your first job, but what about going to your local section meetings? So we used to do this in St. Louis a lot when I was there. We invited all the students in the AES student section at Webster University to come to the St. Louis professional section. And they would meet people who were working in the industry in the same town. They would meet potentially their future employer. And all of these, think about all these studio owners and all these engineers who are at this section meeting, and they're meeting all of these students instead of just being one piece of paper and a stack of resumes on their desk of 100 or 200 resumes. Instead of that, they say, oh yeah, I met that guy. He was at one of our events. He was a really nice guy. I would be happy to have him around my clients. This is a guy I want. So they already know who you are. They put a face with your name. You're not just another piece of paper on the desk. So it's really a great opportunity for students to, to advance much faster in the professional community that surrounds them by being involved with the professional AES section as well as their student section. In a perfect world, every student section has a professional section nearby, and they're always talking to each other and working together and doing events together. Even if they're not doing that much together, even if they go to one event a year together, they're still getting an opportunity to meet the people. The local professionals are meeting their future employees. The students are meeting their future employers. What could be better than that? And as a student, presumably one is interested in learning things, we hope. And aside from what we learn in the classroom and what we can teach you, if you can go out and network with other professionals and visit their studios, think of how much more a student could learn like that. So there's all kinds of great reasons. There are all the benefits and discounts on things and the e-library and everything else. But when it comes down to it, if I were to think about the single most important reason for a student to get involved, it's really because it's your career. And this is going to help your career.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It helped all the careers of the people involved, including mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
And
have a good
Gary,
story? Do you have a good story like that, Julio? about how your career was helped by AES?
yeah, of course, because like I said, I am an AES member from about 6 years. Yeah, and I was very passive and just watching the web, reading documents. And 6 years ago, I went to my first AES, and it was amazing. It blew my mind. Like, wow, I felt like in Disney World,
Yeah.
like a child. And then, like you said, you met your heroes. Like, oh, that's Frank Filippetti.
Yeah.
There's Michael Brower. Yeah, I admire her so much. So I like that. And then, like I said, I met John Krivit, and he presented me a lot of people, including George Massenburg. We went to Mexico with George Massenburg. We went with Stoy and colleague from Antelope Audio. Uh,
Hmm.
there I met Natalie Castro from Antelope Audio, Momo, a lot of people, great people that when you begin to in audio, you are like, hey, they are like a hero, like untouchable, and then you say, hey, that's a human like me,
Yeah.
and they are amazing, good people, friendly. You can talk to like you, Gary, like you say, hey, the president elect of the AES. Well, that's amazing, and we are here talking with you, yeah. And I'm going to meet you in a few weeks, and that's amazing for all the people involved in audio. It's a big opportunity.
It is, and that really is what it's all about. Is you know, so many people, so many students in particular, are intimidated by these
Yeah.
people. Like, we'll be walking through the floor, and I'll go, "Oh, look, there's Bob Katz." Says, "Wait, the guy that wrote the mastering book that we read? The wow, like the Bob Katz? Yeah, go over, say hi. Come on, I'll introduce you." And Bob just loves chatting with people. Everybody, we love talking to each other. This is what we do. We talk a lot, us engineers.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and so to me, that might be the biggest thing for students, is just to break through that and meet your heroes, like you're saying, and really develop a relationship with them. And then have a future, very positive professional relationship with these people too.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And talking about future, what is your vision for the future for AES?
So that's a really good question and a really hard question,
Yeah, I
because
know.
if you asked me this 8 years ago, pre-pandemic, my answer would be a lot different than it is now, because things changed a lot. Um, we are, rebuilding from the pandemic, and I think we're doing really well, but we are still rebuilding. My personal vision is that we need to be more open in more parts of the world. I've been working personally on, more events in places like Asia. We always have a few conferences there, but what about a convention in Asia similar to the Latin American convention? These are the kind of things that are under discussion. It's premature to really discuss anything in concrete details. But what we're trying to do is reach out and serve more of our members, because there are always going to be some members who say, "What good does AES do? I can't afford to go to New York for a convention." And I understand that. Students struggle in going to something that's far away like that. So, what if wherever you are, we brought a convention close enough to you where it would be feasible for you to attend? That kind of member engagement is a very big thing to me. I really want our members to feel engaged. I feel like part of what happened with the pandemic is we all got very disconnected. We did our best. I think that given the circumstances, we did well, and we did a lot of stuff online, and we're actually still enjoying that now. I go to events all over the world virtually. Whenever there's a section meeting I'm interested in, I'll go to it. I don't care where in the world it is. If it's on Zoom, I'll go. Um, but it's not the same as being in person. And I think we're really lost a lot of that personal connection during the pandemic. And I think now that we're in a position where we're able to do that again, we need to look into expanding a little more in terms of engaging our members all over the world.
Well, amazing, Gary.
That's great. That's great, Gary. The time for this show is actually ending. So if you have any questions to Gary, please leave them on the comment section. I actually want to say hi to Carlos Solis, who was connected. Also, Tatiana Sullivan, Dario Peñalosa, Michael Martin says hi from Madrid, Spain. Hey Pereira, a Colombian artist. Blanca Marquez. So thanks a lot for all the people that have been connecting with us. If you've got a question, it's the moment. Now is the moment to do the questions. So,
Right.
well, please do. And Gary, for example, which advice would you give to someone that is actually deciding to become an audio engineer, but maybe can't figure it out? How could you present this amazing world to someone that is about to take this important decision?
Well, the first thing I ask, and I do get this question a lot, the first thing I ask is, what part of audio resonates with you? What part of audio is it that you feel like you're interested in? Do you want to be in a recording studio recording music? Do you want to write code for different apps? Do you want to go into room design? There are so many different aspects to this business that the first question I tend to ask is, what is it that you're interested in? And then, if they are interested in it, but they're not sure about it, and I'm sorry, I've taught at four-year colleges for most of my career, but what I'm going to say is something that people in four-year colleges don't necessarily like to hear, which is, if you're not sure, start at a community college or a junior college. Start somewhere where it's inexpensive. You can take a few classes, see if you really like it, and that'll also help you figure out what aspect of the business you're most interested in. And then you can make the bigger commitment to a four-year school. I do recommend getting a degree. These days, the people who employ engineers do tend to look for a degree, especially if you're going into the coding end or if you're going into the music business end. I recommend things like double majors, or at least having a minor in business or in computer science. Everything is computer science these days. So yes, you want to be an audio major, be an audio major. That's great. Get a little something on the side that supplements it and makes you a stronger candidate than the one next to you. And also, if anyone has any questions, shoot me an email. I'll do my best to answer it. My email address is GG, my initials right up there on the screen, gg@aes.org. And I'll do my best to answer all questions as quickly as I can.
Very easy. Your
Thank
email
you.
is
Thank
easy.
you, Gary. So, well, there you go.
It is.
Thanks a lot for the advice.
You're welcome. And thank you.
Thank you. I am. He says this has been great. Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Julio, for organizing this. I hope to see you both again in the nearest future. That's amazing.
Yes. Well, muchas gracias.
Thank you, my friend. I want to thank you a lot because this is such an honor for us to talk with you, and that we can hear from your words what is AES and the future and everything. Thank you. I hope to see you in La Paz.
See you in about a week and a half.
Yeah,
In about a week and a
yeah.
half, we'll see you, yeah.
I will be the one with the AES cap, right?
I think I'll figure out which one you are, yes.
Thank
And
you.
I think you'll figure out who I am too. I'll be wearing a shirt like this.
Really? I don't know if it's cold. I don't know. I really don't know about the weather.
Oh, well, it is. La Paz has some elevation to it. It might be a little chilly, but we'll be indoors.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I'm talking about audio. It's going to be amazing. And I want to thank you, David Sicar, for everything. He's in the controls every time. Thank you,
Me,
David.
Thank
that's
you,
me.
Dave.
No, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to get to meet you. You actually said a lot of things that I think are really important, and you actually clarified how AES works. I didn't know how AES works, so that was pretty cool. It's an honor to have you here. And again, thank you
Yep.
again. Thank you, Julio, for creating these spaces and let me be a part of this, which is amazing, and I'm really grateful for. So Tatiana Sullivan actually says hello and thanks from the Capital University AES student chapter.
Wonderful. And I hope to meet everyone who's commenting at some point or another at some convention.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And La Paz is going to be great. David, do you have the video of La Paz? I love that video.
I do, I
Uh,
do.
I love the video. I have never been in La
Beautiful.
Paz. It's going to be amazing. There's going to be the immersive tour by Genelec. Miguel Dominguez is going to be there, a friend of the studio. It's going to be amazing. The next live that we're going to have is with Luis Soria, who is, I guess, he is with Luis Soria and Álvaro Panoso. He's going to be with us talking about the AES convention in La Paz. So I hope you don't miss it. You don't miss it because we're going to talk about everything. Thank you, Gary.
Yep. Thank you, Julio, and thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Okay, unfortunately, the time has ended. And
Yeah.
we have to leave you, Gary. Thank you for all your time. Gracias a todos por estar en este live. Recuerden que en un par de días lo van a encontrar en Spotify. Sik, do you have the Spotify video to show Gary?
I do have the Spotify video. I'm actually going to say this in English just because we make this whole episode in English. So you will be able to find this episode of Produciendo con Julio Monroy in all streaming platforms. It's really simple. You just put Produciendo con Julio Monroy, you search, and there you will find these episodes and all the past episodes as well. So well, at the end of this week, you're gonna be able to find this episode in all streaming platforms, which I think is pretty great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Do you agree, Gary? Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank
Thank you
you.
a lot for being here.
Okay,
So,
muchas gracias. Yeah.
De nada. Thank you and bye everyone. Chao a todos. Muchas gracias por estar en este live tan especial con Gary. Cuídense mucho. Chao.